We know they can calculate, but can they cogitate? A row has broken out that has split one university department down the middle. Some at the University of Reading's Cybernetics department believe that not only will computers one day become conscious, they might already be so. Others in the same department say they're not, never will be, and never can be. Dr. Mark Bishop says computers don't think, and his colleague, Professor Kevin Warwick, has told us on this programme before that they can, and that one day they could even inherit the Earth. Well, both men are on the line now. Dr. Bishop, why can't computers think?
Well, if computers can think, then we'll find thinking entities everywhere, in cups of tea, in glasses of beer, and even in rocks.
What do you mean by that?
Well, it's an argument I'll be expounding on a meeting of the British Computer Society November the 16th at Oxford University, but basically it says that computers can be built from anything. They can have mechanical computers, such as designed by Babbage. We can have computers built from toilet rolls. We can have electrical computers. All computer behaviour is defined by a series of transitions between states, and any physical system, such as a cup of tea, a glass of beer or a rock, that's behaviour is defined by a series of state transitions. And a philosopher called Hilary Putnam showed how we can map between these two systems, cups of teas, glasses of beers and rocks, and computer systems. And hence, if a computer is conscious in virtue of executing a computer program, then so is a glass of beer, a cup of tea or a rock.
Professor Warwick.
Yeah, well, I think likening the intelligence of a robot or computer to a cup of tea or a rock is about the same as likening the human intelligence to a twig or an amoeba or something like that.
Yeah, but he's got a point though, hasn't he? Because a computer is really only a glorified abacus, and you wouldn't ever argue that an abacus can think.
I think if you're looking at a personal computer sitting on a bench which you switch on and off, then probably you are looking at something like that if it is purely programmed. But when you're looking at a robot that's sensing the world with a computer type thing for a brain, and it interacts with the world, to say that that sort of robot cannot possibly be conscious because it's not like me, it's not biological, is simply ridiculous. It's the same as saying aeroplanes cannot fly because they're not like birds, they're not biological.
Okay, well, if you think that computers can indeed think, and given this age-old philosophical principle at the heart of the Western tradition, I think, therefore I am,
yeah.
Is a computer conscious of its own identity?
I don't think that I would be pompous as a human to say a computer cannot be conscious or aware of its own identity. Certainly robots, we know, can be aware of themselves in a physical sense, just as we are aware if we look in the mirror of ourselves. Whether it thinks about itself in a profound way, that's up to the robot. I'm not a robot, I'm not a bee, I don't know what it's like to be those creatures.
Dr. Bishop, can we ever know what consciousness is, and therefore can we ever rule it out in applying it to other forms of life?
Well, I certainly know what phenomenal consciousness is, and that's what it's like to see red or what it's like to feel pain. And I believe I can argue convincingly that a computer cannot instantiate a phenomenal consciousness. So yes.
Professor Warwick, if a computer is a sentient being, which is what you seem to be arguing, does a computer have characteristics like free will, for example?
I don't have any problem with a computer or robot having a sense of free will in its own way. I mean, things like red and pain, they mean things to humans. They depend on our senses. I mean, what does red or pain mean to an ant or a bee? I think you have to
know what pain is. I'll biff him on the head when we get back to the department, and I'm sure you'll find out quickly then.
You have to look at what the robot is doing, how it's sensing the world, what pain might mean to a robot in terms of electronics.
But there's been a lot of work done in the last decade about on mapping the anatomy of the human brain, and you can locate in the human brain now specific places or specific areas of the brain that are associated with things like moral choice, things like physical pain, and so on. You can't do the same with a collection of microchips.
Oh, I think exactly that. Mark's argument would be you can do that to the dot, to the actual cell that you can relate it to, which we haven't yet, I think, got that far with the human brain. But we're getting there.
Dr. Bishop, doesn't this come down to, as everything, come down to a problem with definition? Namely, it depends what you mean by thinking, it depends what you mean by consciousness.
Well, it kind of comes back to a definition, but I think Kevin's already conceded the case, because he said earlier on that he doesn't believe a computer sitting on a desk might ever be conscious, but somehow one that's transposed to controlling a robot might be. And yet both systems are controlled by computer programs. And so if you're happy to concede that a computer on a desk won't be conscious because it executes a computer program, then there's no reason to suppose that one that's controlled controlling a robot will be. So I think
I
Kevin's
think
already
it's-
conceded the case.
I think it's difficult to perceive, for us as humans, to perceive a personal computer to be conscious, because we switch it on and we switch it off and it's not sensing the world in any other way.
Dr. Bishop, Professor Warwick, thank you both.
Thank you.
26 minutes.